Hi everyone, Gary Cassidy here, and I'm with a man who needs absolutely no introduction, purely than saying his name. It's Frank Turner. How's it going, Frank?
Very well, thank you. We're backstage at the Barrowlands, which is one of my favourite gigs in the world, and it's always an honour to be here, and I'm very happy to be in Scotland.
And it's a place you've played many times because you've been touring forever. I don't think you ever take a break from touring.
Yeah, we take a few more than we used to. We managed to disguise this a little bit, but I tour a fair amount, and I have definitely been here many times before.
Yeah, so before we get into the serious stuff, I'm going to ask two questions. I'm sure you've been asked many, many times before. You've been on the road a long time. Firstly, what's the best thing about touring?
The best thing about touring is that this is probably a more philosophical answer than you were expecting, but like the thing I would love most about touring is there's a daily chance to restate your case. If you have a bad show, there's tomorrow night, and if you have a good show, then tomorrow night you've got to do it better. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, it doesn't, you know, there's just something about what it feels like. The slate gets wiped clean every morning. Do you know what I mean? Because you're in a new place, you wake up in a new town, especially when you're touring a bus and you travel overnight. Do you know what I mean? You just wake up and it's like Glasgow, and yesterday was Middlesbrough, and the day before was York, and it's just there's something really redemptive about that.
And I'm going to be disappointed if the next answer isn't your cat. What's the worst thing about touring? And if it's not missing your cat, I'll be disappointed.
Well, on a normal tour, I'd say missing my wife before missing my cat, but she's actually on tour with us right now, so we have solved that problem this time around. So in that case, yes, missing my cat.
Excellent, man. So we're going to get into some slightly deeper stuff, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
In this current day and age, just the way the world is right now, you previously wrote a song called Be More Kind. How important is that message, maybe now more than ever? I
mean, the first thing I'd say is that I'm slightly wary around the idea of songwriters having messages. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, obviously I wrote the song and I'll stand by it, and I put it on an album cover and t-shirts and backdrops and all the rest, so I'm slightly talking out of my ass saying that. But like, you know, I think I'm a songwriter first and foremost, but that was my reaction to how the world's been going, particularly since 2016, where it really felt like you know, the Matrix started kind of glitching a lot more. But with, you know, there were a couple of votes in 2016 that were pretty surprising for everybody. And this is the thing though about the record, is it is in its way an attempt to write a non-partisan record, because I don't actually really care how people voted on Brexit. I find the Trump thing slightly more troubling, but nevertheless, I accept that there are people who are not terrible people who voted for Donald Trump. And if you want to, we have to communicate with these people. We have to, I mean, among other things, persuade them not to do it again later this year. And the only way you can do that is by being sort of on a level and being human and being considerate. Do you know what I mean? If you just shout at people you disagree with all day, every day, then they will continue to disagree with you and also think you're an arsehole. And at the end of the day, I just feel like we live in a point right now where a lot of people are just selling their own humanity really cheap. And I think that's the best thing that any of us have in every situation, is our own kind of decency. And I think people who just kind of sell that cheap are missing a trick, because among other things, if you're arguing with somebody who then abandons their own decency, then you've kind of won anyway if you keep hold of yours. So that's what I think anyway. And I think it's funny because it's not a sentiment that I would have expressed in a song 20 years ago when I was an angry teenage anarchist, as Against Me sang, you know, and it's certainly something that I've learned over time, and that was a long time in the learning, and it felt worth sharing.
Yeah, and something that for me, I know you said you don't like putting messages in songs, but obviously the listeners are always going to take messages from something.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I've took a lot of positive ones from you, and I know a lot of other people have. And in this current day and age, again, there's a lot of people, we're losing a lot of people to depression. But your songs get a lot of people through tough times. Is that something that's deliberate? Is it something, have you got a message for the people that are listening that kind of use your songs to get through things?
I mean, well, I mean, it's very flattering. I mean, if that's the right word. And so, certainly the thing is, it's like, I don't think of my music in that way, because that would be weird, and I'd probably disappear up my own arse quite quickly if I did. But there's tons of music that I listen to which serves that purpose for me, and so I understand what people are saying when they say that to me. I just don't walk around all day every day going, yeah, I wrote a great song that's, you know, help people. That's not brilliant. But I think the thing is, the first person that I'm talking to in any of my songwriting is myself, for the most part, you know, and an awful lot of it is me having a word with myself in the mirror kind of thing. And if that then goes on to be useful to other people, that's not only heartwarming and kind of flattering, but it's kind of a relief in a funny way because one of the whole things about mental health issues is the feeling of isolation, the feeling like you're an alien, you're insane, and that nobody else feels this way. So to put out a reasonably excoriating statement about your own shortcomings and have people go, yeah, man, I get it. That helps me, certainly, you know, and it's very powerful when people say stuff to me after shows or whatever about how songs help and that kind of thing, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, and there's two other, I wouldn't call you a front man, but there's two other front men I'm going to divulge into here.
Sure.
One of which you recently wished a happy birthday to, and it was a guy who I recently interviewed. I can see your eyes going, wondering, who is that?
I think I know.
It's someone who, like me, has a Frank Turner tattoo.
It's Jarrett.
Yeah,
lovely Jarrett, who is the most wonderfully self-effacing man. The thing about Jarrett that always makes me laugh, right, is I've sort of vaguely known him for quite a while now, and he's mentioned me in songs, got a tattoo and all the rest of it, and I'm hugely flattered by that because he's a great and wonderful songwriter and established musician, all this sort of business. But like, whenever we play Dallas, I hit him up. I'm like, dude, let's hang out. And he always goes, oh, you know, I don't want to get in your hair. And I'm like, no. I'm inviting you to come and have some dinner or whatever. And he's like, oh, I'll probably just see you after the show kind of thing. And he's always just like, thanks for the guest list, oh, you know, see you later kind of thing. And I'm a bit like, dude, let's hang out, man. Like, you're great. I think he's a lovely guy. But I mean all of this in a positive way. Like, he's just a really sweet dude. Do you know what I mean? Who doesn't want to like impose. And that's a wonderful feeling to have. Yeah,
and another one, we're going to go back to the mental health thing. Obviously, you're friends with Scott Hutchison from Frightened Rabbit.
Yeah.
What do you think his legacy has been? I know you're one of the people who are carrying on really well, but what do you think his legacy has been or will go on to be?
That's an interesting question, and that is an interesting question. I mean, I think that the main legacy that I think Scott leaves behind, and that I think everybody who's a songwriter really wants to leave behind, is the songs, really. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and like a lot of people, in the immediate aftermath of Scott's death, I found there was no universe in which I was going to listen to Frightened Rabbit anytime soon. That was too much. Yeah. But then, like, we actually did a thing for a long time where we had Frightened Rabbit as the walk-in music on my tours, and it, because I'd sort of got into a place where I could listen to it again, and then it just sort of, I put it on one night, and then it just felt really good. It felt like, you know, his impact was still there in the room, and like I just had so many people like getting in touch or emailing after shows or whatever saying, you know, initially when I walked into the show and I heard Frightened Rabbit on the stereo, I was like, what the fuck? And then actually kind of went, oh yeah, because that's what songwriters are trying to do, is just sort of, you know, put their voice out there and leave a little something behind. And I think that I will keep listening to Frightened Rabbit records until the day I die. Do you know what I mean? And what more could anybody else, what more could any songwriter want than that, you know? I mean, beyond that, I think that Scott was one of the things that, I'm going to say this carefully, one of the things that was challenging in many ways about Scott's passing was that he'd been so wonderfully vocal about his own issues with mental health and inspirational in the level that it was like, oh yeah, he's one of us and he's doing all right, do you know what I mean? Or at the very least he's able to talk about it. And then obviously in the end he lost that fight, and that was hard. Because what had been a cause for optimism ceased to be that. Do you know what I mean? It was like, shit, he's gone under, and that was really tough. And I think about that quite a lot. But you know, I think the main thing, his music survives, and I think that I, like a lot of people, and like you were mentioning earlier, like I find a lot of solace in his songwriting. Yeah,
well, it's one of the things that I think when I said about you carrying on his legacy through playing like the odd song live and stuff, I think that for a lot of Frightened Rabbit fans is probably a cathartic experience. Which the last question I'm going to ask you, there's something, and I'm obviously a huge fan, so I'll get that out of the way just before I ruin my journalistic integrity. I'm going to get that out of the way. But I think there's nothing like a Frank Turner gig. I think like there's no words that can describe it. Maybe cathartic is one. What is so special about your gigs? Why is it? Like I know that's probably, you said getting up your own arse, but you know what I think? We're going to go there.
I'm the wrong person to ask. No, I mean, I will say this, and you're probably going to hear me repeat this in the show tonight, which is why I think of it now as just a thing I've been riffing on stage, but this is true. So when I was a kid, I got into like thrash, was essentially my first love, Maiden and that kind of thing, and that stuff's really hard to play. And my older sister was into stuff like Cat and Crows, Levelers, like Weezer, if I'm 100% honest, Alanis Morissette, you know, that sort of territory. Indeed, Four Non Blondes. Still know how to play that fucking song. But anyway, so I started learning songs that my sister liked, which then became songs that I liked. But the thing was, and this is the important part, is that like I wasn't learning these songs so that I could get everyone to shut up and sit in silence while I performed. I was learning the chords because everybody knew the words, and that way it became a collective experience, and it was us as a group of friends or as a family, because my two sisters and a whole bunch of us, when we all grew up together, we went to primary school together and everything, in Hampshire, and like, you know, we'd all go on like camping holidays together with our parents when we were kids, and then when we became teenagers we'd sneak off and go and smoke cheap fags and take a guitar and play Counting Crow songs, you know. But this is it, it wasn't a gig, I wasn't gigging, I wasn't like, listen to this thing I've written, or like, shut up. It was like, I'm functionally bringing something to the party that enables us all to do something together. And that's obviously not 100% what I'm doing now, but it's certainly a big part of the kind of philosophy, ideology, however you want to put it, behind what I do. Is it's like, there's nothing, all of this is a really, really long-winded way of saying I really like a sing-along. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But like, it is true. It's like, there's nothing that fills me with more joy than to play some chords and have a room full of people singing. It feels amazing, and it feels extra amazing if I occasionally stop and remember that I wrote this song. Yeah. But I genuinely don't think about that much when I'm playing. It's more just kind of like, hey, we all know this one, let's do this one, you know, and that's just a good feeling. Yeah, definitely. And well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. Excellent, thank you.